Without hurting people's feelings, people get sensitive. KD says the other day his name should be discussed in the greatest of all time. I think the greatest player is Michael Jordan.
Shaq just fired shots at Kevin Durant after KD laughed about Michael Jordan's era and his time playing baseball, and Shaq didn't hold back for a second. Everyone knew Shaq wasn't the type to stay quiet, but no one saw this level of heat coming. So here's what went down. Back in December 2025, LeBron James and Kevin Durant linked up for an episode of LeBron's Mind the Game podcast. Things started out chill, just two legends talking about load management, how today's players take rest days to stay fresh through the season. Then they started comparing how the old school ballers from the 80s and 90s pushed through injuries without all the fancy tech, recovery gear, or private jets that players now enjoy.
I want to give him a GOAT kind of status because I don't want to disrespect his talent because KD we've never seen that before, right? As a fan of basketball, to me, I've never seen a more skilled guy at that height. He could do everything that a guard can do. He shoots better than anybody ever, damn near except for Steph. And that part I think is GOAT status. But I'm saying, like, when y'all start doing championships and this, it gets weird.
And that's when the convo took a turn. They brought up Michael Jordan, his grind, his legacy, and yeah, even that brief switch to baseball in the 90s. LeBron and KD cracked a few jokes about the old days, laughing at how different the game used to be. It all seemed lighthearted in the moment, just banter between two icons, but Shaquille O'Neal didn't take it as a joke. When clips from the podcast started blowing up online, Shaq jumped in fast. He made it clear he wasn't impressed. To him, that laughter wasn't harmless, it was straight-up disrespect. Shaq saw it as two modern superstars brushing off the blood, sweat, and grind of the legends who built the game before him. Shaq didn't just clap back, he went in. He said LeBron and KD clearly never lived through the reality of Michael Jordan's grind and had no idea what that era was truly like. Shaq broke down how their comments showed a sense of player entitlement, tearing apart their whole view of what toughness in basketball really means. He reminded everyone that LeBron and KD never had to catch commercial flights, play brutal back-to-backs with no rest days, or hit the court without today's high-tech recovery tools. Shaq painted the picture clear. Back in the day, hooping was straight-up survival. No fancy sports science, no personal chefs, no cryotherapy, just grit, pain, and love for the game. Then he hit him with some emotional truth. Shaq pointed out that MJ's story wasn't all championships and highlight reels. It came with heartbreak. He reminded the world that Michael Jordan's father, James Jordan, was murdered in 1993, and that deep loss pushed MJ to walk away from basketball for a while and try baseball.
Without hurting people's feelings, people get sensitive. KD says the other day his name should be discussed in the greatest of all time conversation. What has he not done? Agree or disagree?
So you got to be specific. You can't just say greatest of all.
No, the GOAT. Like they always talk about LeBron,
I think
Michael Jordan. I throw in Kobe. Some people don't. I threw in Steph Kerr the other day. No, he's saying his name should be in that conversation.
Shaq made sure everyone knew that moment wasn't about ego. It was about pain and healing. So when Shaq saw LeBron and KD laughing about that chapter, he said it showed a serious lack of respect. He accused him of forgetting the legends who built the foundation for their fame. Players like MJ, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Through interviews and fiery social media posts, Shaq tore down their GOAT talk, calling them out for ignoring the blood and bruises of the 80s and 90s. He said back then, the game was raw. Hard contact wasn't a flagrant, and defense came with real hits. Shaq made it clear. Old school players didn't just play basketball, they survived it. Shaq didn't hold back for a second. He said straight up that today's stars wouldn't last a week in the rough and tumble world of the 80s and 90s NBA.
I think KD is the GOAT on this for 7 foot, 2 guard.
No. Is he one of the greatest of all time? Yes.
He's one of the greatest 7. We've never seen another KD.
Should he be in that conversation?
He claimed the modern game is softer, built for comfort. Players like LeBron and KD would have struggled to survive in an era where every game felt like a war. Shaq urged them to respect the history they so casually laughed about, reminding everyone that he's not just speaking as a retired legend. He's defending the pride of a generation that built basketball's foundation. But the reactions? Wildly split. Some fans were totally with Shaq, cheering him on for standing up for the old-school warriors who paved the way. Others said he was just another old head who can't let go of the past.
What you think?
I think so. And I think so. Kevin Durant is a transcendent talent, bro. Like we've never
seen it before.
We've never seen anybody like KD. And I said this the other day on something else I was doing.
One side felt LeBron and KD went too far, saying that laughing about Michael Jordan, a man many still call the greatest to ever touch a basketball, crossed the line, especially since that baseball chapter in MJ's career was tied to real pain and personal tragedy. To them, that laughter wasn't harmless. It was straight-up disrespect. But then there's the other camp, those who said LeBron and KD were just talking. They weren't trashing MJ, they were just reflecting on how the game has evolved. Fans on X flooded timelines with debates, arguing whether Shaq was preaching facts or just showing his generational bias.
The timing was bad when he went to Golden State. Right after that, right after losing to them, then going to them. I think any other year in his career he'd go there, it's not looked at as that particular thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's such a sensitive subject with people in basketball and basketball debates, but Kevin Durant is absolutely one of the best players that we've seen of all time.
The basketball world ended up split down the middle, half calling Shaq a protector of legacy and half saying he's stuck in the past. This whole thing reignited the eternal GOAT debate, with Shaq proudly standing in MJ's corner while LeBron and KD represent the new school wave. Now, this feud isn't just about one podcast episode. It's become a battle between eras, pride, and respect for the game itself. This whole situation goes way deeper than one podcast. It's part of a long-standing clash between generations in basketball. Old school legends believe some things in the game should stay sacred, built on respect, grind, and tradition. But the new school players see it differently, believing that the game belongs to whoever's on the court right now. When it comes to Shaq and Kevin Durant, this tension isn't new. Their beef has been simmering for years. Let's rewind to 2017, infamous Javale McGee's feud.
So he's one of two of the most prolific, dominant scorers ever. And I think, like you said, to piggyback on what you said, because you lose to Golden State and then you go join them and win a championship, I think that tarnishes it. Now, if he can win one where he's the bus driver, like Charles would say, I think we would definitely have to put him in that conversation. But right now, I don't really have him that, but he does have his own thing.
That's where things between Shaq and KD really exploded. It wasn't even about them two at first. It all started with Javale McGee, a center for the Golden State Warriors. For years, Shaq had been roasting Javale McGee on his TNT segment, Shaq'd in a Fool. The segment was all about NBA bloopers, missed dunks, clumsy turnovers, and defensive slip-ups that made fans laugh. But here's the twist. McGee became a regular target. Week after week, Shaq used clips of McGee's mistakes, turning them into a running joke on national TV. What Shaq saw as comedy, KD saw as straight-up bullying. Durant had enough of watching his teammate get dragged for laughs. KD finally stepped in and lit up Twitter, now X, calling Shaq out publicly. He said the big man was acting childish and accused him of using his fame just to humiliate another player who was trying to make his mark in the league.
Yeah, but I think people were upset because, especially guys that we play this game. If we knew that was acceptable, probably a lot of us would have switched up. If I knew that was acceptable, I would have just went to Chicago. If I knew that was acceptable, I would.
KD didn't hold back for a second. He went straight at a Hall of Famer, saying Shaq was more focused on attention than respecting players still fighting for their careers. That moment set the stage for everything that's happening now, a clash between pride, ego, and two eras that refused to back down. KD didn't just defend JaVale, he took things to a whole new level. He went straight for Shaq's legacy, questioning the big man's actual skills. KD claimed Shaq wasn't a technical player at all, saying he only dominated because of his massive size and strength. He even compared him to players who couldn't hit free throws or evolve their game beyond brute force. And that statement shook the internet. It was wild because we're talking about Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most unstoppable centers in NBA history. 4 championships, 3 straight finals MVPs, and countless defenders bulldozed in his path. To say he had no skill wasn't just criticism, it was a straight-up shot at his basketball identity. KD argued that Shaq's power masked his lack of finesse, calling out his ugly free throw percentage as proof.
It's crazy. You were 10 years old in 97, 98, the last run with Phil Jackson and MJ. What do you remember growing up in PG County about this incredible player, man?
I mean, Jordan was everything. You know, he was the standard. He was what you strive to be as a basketball player. I mean, obviously the shoes, the jersey sales, the commercials, all of that stuff was constant. But when you watch the play and your eyes were always glued to the TV, glued to him.
Durant said Shaq never needed to master versatility or adapt to different styles because he could just overpower everyone in the paint. And that right there, that's what set Shaq off. Shaq clapped back hard. He told KD to mind his business until he actually won a ring, because at that time, KD hadn't won a single championship yet. Shaq made it clear that his 4 rings spoke louder than any tweet or opinion. In his eyes, a player without titles had zero right to question someone who had conquered the league multiple times. Shaq doubled down, flexing his achievements and reminding everyone of his finals dominance. Then he went after modern players as a whole, calling them soft and too sensitive. That jab became one of Shaq's favorite talking points in the years that followed, fueling an ongoing war of words between the old-school titans and the new generation stars who dared to challenge him. Shaq made it crystal clear he thought today's NBA had gone soft. He said the league isn't as physical, not as demanding, and filled with players who couldn't handle the kind of pressure and criticism that his generation faced every single night.
He has that line, win at all costs, right?
Yeah.
When I say that, how does that translate to Kevin Durant?
Well, anything, coach needs you to do it on the floor. Anything, you got to be prepared for any situation. I think MJ was always prepared, no matter if you had to hit the game-winning shot, make the game-winning, assist, get a steal, get a block shot. I think he was always prepared for every moment.
Once their argument blew up online, it exploded. The back and forth went viral, pulling in even more big names, including Warriors coach Steve Kerr. Kerr stepped up in defense of his guy. He called Shaq's behavior unprofessional, saying it wasn't cool for a legend to use his platform to tear down active players. Coming from a man who's won titles both with Michael Jordan and as coach of the Warriors, that hit hard. Kerr said the old heads needed to stop clowning the new stars and start respecting how the game has evolved. Meanwhile, KD didn't flinch. He doubled down, saying, if I've got something to say, I'm gonna say it. He made it clear that he wasn't scared of Shaq's legacy or his influence in the media world. KD wasn't backing off. He was ready to go head-to-head no matter how big the name was. Shaq, though, wasn't about to let that slide. He fired back again, saying the NBA's softness was exactly because of players like KD. In interview after interview, Shaq kept pushing the idea that the league had lost its edge. Too friendly, too careful, not enough grit. That clash turned into a full-on symbol of generational divide. Shaq standing for the rough, battle-tested old-school era, and KD repping the slick, skill-heavy modern game. For Shaq, greatness meant rings, pain, and dominance. But for KD, it was all about precision, versatility, and pure skill. The tension didn't fade. It kept boiling all season long, fueling one of the NBA's most iconic generational feuds. The wild twist? Just 4 months after Shaq told KD to win a ring before talking, KD did exactly that. In June of that same year, KD finally captured his first NBA championship with the Golden State Warriors. And not only that, he was crowned Finals MVP.
So I tend to watch that because you only hear about your airness and Air Jordan, but to see the attention to detail to fundamentals was something that stood out the most, especially as I got older and started to watch more. And I started to realize what the fundamentals of the game really means. but you get it just amazed at his athleticism, but to see the attention to the footwork, his body placement on his shots, when time and score, everything, it was just perfect.
The Warriors crushed the Cleveland Cavaliers, and KD silenced everyone who said he couldn't back up his words with trophies. It was the ultimate clapback to Shaq's challenge. That championship shut down some of the noise, but it didn't kill the tension, not even close. Even after lifting the trophy, KD and Shaq kept finding ways to collide. Their dynamic became a pattern. They'd trade shots, cool off for a while, and then something would spark it all over again. The heat never really disappeared. It just waited for the next reason to flare up. And sure enough, by January 2023, another fire started burning, this time on live TV and social media. During a TNT broadcast, Shaq threw shade at Lakers forward Rui Hachimura, saying he didn't even know who the guy was. The timing was brutal because Hachimura had just been traded to the Lakers and delivered a strong game. Fans called Shaq's comment disrespectful, and KD definitely took notice. KD, then playing for the Brooklyn Nets, couldn't resist jumping in. He subtweeted Shaq, hinting that Shaq was out of touch with today's game and younger players. It was a slick but sharp jab, classic KD style. Shaq's clips started blowing up online, and the back and forth between them reignited once again, proving their rivalry wasn't just history, it was still alive and ready to spark at any moment. KD didn't hold back. He straight up implied that Shaq was out of touch with today's NBA. He basically said it was wild that a Hall of Famer turned analyst could claim he didn't even know a current player who was out there hooping every night. Fans started buzzing instantly, and things escalated fast once Shaq caught wind of KD's shade. Shaq came back swinging, no hesitation. He mocked KD's career moves, throwing jabs about his sensitivity and the decisions he'd made over the years, from team switches to his own line spats. Shaq wasn't about to let anyone question his basketball IQ, especially not someone from the new generation. And KD, he wasn't staying quiet either. He clapped back with petty precision, cracking jokes about Shaq's age and saying his social media presence felt like old guy internet energy. KD even tossed in a random jab involving rapper J. Cole, completely unexpected and chaotic. The whole thing turned into a weird blend of basketball beef and internet trolling that fans couldn't stop watching.
KD roasted Shaq's social media habits, suggesting he posted like someone who didn't really get how the internet works. It was messy, hilarious, and totally unnecessary, yet so on brand for their feud. The random J. Cole mention just made the whole thing feel even more unhinged, like they were both just swinging for laughs at that point. Even though the exchange didn't last long, it added another layer to their long-running beef. Fans called it pointless drama, but it showed one thing clearly: these two still had real unresolved tension. And what made it even crazier? This wasn't the first time they clashed that year. Just months earlier, in June 2022, KD was already caught in another storm with his former teammate Draymond Green. When the podcast drama reignited in 2022, Shaq once again jumped into the mix, and this time he took Draymond Green's side over KD's. Draymond had been talking publicly about Durant's role on those Warriors championship teams, and his comments rubbed KD the wrong way. But instead of staying out of it, Shaq added fuel to the fire, backing Draymond and throwing shade at KD by saying he was too sensitive about his legacy and those titles. That's when the whole bus rider versus bus driver debate resurfaced, a phrase Shaq had been pushing for years. He argued that Durant wasn't the driver of the Warriors' success, but more like a passenger who joined an already loaded team that had proven they could win without him. Shaq claimed those rings didn't hold the same weight as titles earned by players who built their teams from the ground up. KD wasn't about to let that narrative stick. He clapped back on social media, accusing Shaq of being stuck in the past and refusing to accept how much the league had evolved. KD basically said, old heads can't handle player empowerment. Their back and forth once again became the talk of the basketball world. Old school versus new school, pride versus progress. But despite all the drama, there were still rare flashes of respect between the two. In March 2024, when KD passed Shaq on the all-time scoring list, bumping him down to 9th place, Shaq actually gave KD his props publicly. Of course, he couldn't resist sneaking in one last jab, telling Durant to go get the all-time scoring record, the one still held by LeBron James. Even in a moment of respect, Shaq kept that competitive edge alive,
proving their rivalry might calm down, but it's never truly over. Shaq's congratulations to KD felt real, but of course, he couldn't help slipping in a little challenge with it. He told Durant he still had more to prove. Fans immediately started debating his words. Was it genuine respect from one legend to another, or just another slick way for Shaq to remind KD of his unfinished business? Some saw it as a classy nod to greatness, while others said it carried that familiar passive-aggressive edge that's defined their rocky history. Then in November 2024, something surprising happened. KD found himself locked in a feud with ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, who had criticized his leadership, questioned his impact on teams. But this time, Shaq didn't pile on. He defended KD. Shaq publicly told Stephen A. to put some respect on Durant's name and acknowledge what he's accomplished in the league. Fans couldn't believe it. After years of trading jabs, Shaq was suddenly backing KD up. That move showed just how complicated their relationship really is. One day they're firing shots at each other, and the next they're standing on the same side. It's a strange mix of rivalry, mutual respect, and competitive fire. Two alpha personalities who can't help but clash, but also understand each other's grind. At the core of it all lies one huge question that keeps the debate alive. Where does Kevin Durant really stand in basketball history? The never-ending GOAT debate, who's truly the greatest of all time, continues to stir the game's culture, and KD's place in that conversation has always divided fans and analysts alike. Shaq's had his stance crystal clear across multiple platforms. He's got strong opinions about where KD ranks, and those opinions have fueled much of their public tension. Their rivalry isn't just personal anymore. It's about legacy, pride, and who really deserves a seat among basketball's immortals. For Shaq, the GOAT conversation isn't open to everyone. It's got a very exclusive guest list. At the top sits Michael Jordan, no question about it. Kobe Bryant, even with some debate, earns his spot in that sacred circle. LeBron James is always in the mix, and Steph Curry has forced his way into consideration with his insane championship resume. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he's got the all-time scoring record and the titles to back it up. But when it comes to Kevin Durant, Shaq places him in a whole different category. Shaq admits KD is an all-time great, but he stops short of calling him one of the greatest. To him, there's a big difference between being great and being GOAT level. Shaq drew that line clearly. KD may have elite skills and rings, but he hasn't earned that ultimate tier in Shaq's eyes. And that distinction, it stings, because being one of the greatest doesn't carry the same weight as being among the greatest. Shaq's words cut deep, and fans instantly split over it. Some said Shaq was being too harsh, while others agreed that the top table in basketball history should stay reserved for legends who defined their eras. Of course, plenty of people fired back with the counter-argument, pointing out that KD is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, he moves like a guard and shoots like a sniper. His ball handling, pull-up game, and scoring versatility are unmatched for someone his size. From a pure skill standpoint, Durant is something basketball had never seen before. But even with that praise, there's still one decision that continues to shadow his legacy. That moment in 2016, when Kevin Durant's Oklahoma City Thunder blew a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. What came next changed everything. After blowing that 3-1 lead, the Thunder's season collapsed. 3 straight losses, and just like that, it was over. Then came the move that sent shockwaves through the entire basketball world. That summer, Kevin Durant signed with the Golden State Warriors, the very team that had just eliminated him. Fans were stunned and critics lined up instantly. Shaq didn't stay quiet either. He compared KD's situation to his own, but with a twist. Shaq said he never claimed a spot in the ultimate GOAT conversation himself. Instead, he saw his place as one of the most dominant forces ever to touch the game. And in Shaq's eyes, KD falls into a similar lane, one of the most skilled scorers of all time, but not quite standing shoulder to shoulder with legends like Michael Jordan. That's where the famous bus driver versus bus rider metaphor really came to life. Shaq and Charles Barkley used it to explain a simple but brutal idea. Real greatness means driving the bus, not just hopping on for the ride. Barkley never won a ring, but Shaq said if KD could capture a championship as the undisputed leader of his own team, not as part of a pre-built dynasty, it would change his legacy forever. But KD's public image made things complicated. Unlike players who built close bonds with fans or the media, Durant kept his circle tight and his walls up. He stayed vocal online, sometimes firing back hard at critics on social media, but rarely showed much of his personal side beyond basketball. That distance gave people room to shape his story for him, often not in ways he liked. Shaq saw Durant's move to Golden State as a break from the code that old-school players live by, the unwritten rule that said you build a legacy, you don't join someone else's. But Durant flipped that mindset completely. He didn't care about perception. He chose the route that gave him the best shot to win, even if it meant rewriting what loyalty and legacy looked like in the modern NBA. Kevin Durant's take on Michael Jordan tells a very different story than what Shaq likes to suggest. While Shaq often paints himself as the ultimate defender of MJ's legacy against the modern generation, Durant's words show something much deeper, a real reverence for Jordan and what he stood for. In an interview filmed for The Boardroom, Durant opened up about what it was like growing up during Jordan's final championship run and how that era shaped everything he came to believe about basketball greatness. Durant grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, a kid glued to the TV just like millions of others in the 90s. He watched in awe as Jordan ruled the court and led the Bulls dynasty, turning the sport into something bigger than basketball itself. For KD, Jordan wasn't just another star, he was the blueprint. He studied everything about MJ's mentality, that ruthless win-at-all-costs mindset that demanded total preparation and total effort. Durant saw how Jordan could dominate in every way possible, scoring, passing, defending, and creating for his team when it mattered most. That complete, all-around control of the game became something Durant obsessed over and tried to carry into his own career. As KD got older, his respect for Jordan only deepened. What once looked like effortless dominance to a young fan now revealed layers of leadership, discipline, and emotional control that only another elite player could truly understand. Durant started to see how Jordan didn't just perform, he elevated everyone around him while never lowering his own standard. So while some might claim KD disrespected MJ's era, his own words prove the opposite. Jordan wasn't just a legend to Durant, he was the foundation of his entire approach to the game. Durant didn't just watch Michael Jordan's highlights, he studied them like a textbook. Every move, every pivot, every release, KD broke it all down piece by piece. He wasn't watching as a fan, he was watching like a scientist of the game. Durant said he noticed the small details that most people completely overlook, the kind of things only another elite player would catch. He pointed out that while fans were often mesmerized by Jordan's crazy dunks and athleticism, they missed just how technically perfect his shooting form was. KD said Jordan's jumper was so clean that the ball almost always snapped the bottom of the net, pure precision. But what impressed Durant even more was his footwork. He studied how Jordan created space, shifting his body at impossible angles that left defenders completely helpless. KD saw that it wasn't luck or magic, it was endless repetition. Jordan's movement came from hours and hours of work in the gym, polishing every inch of his craft until it looked effortless. Durant looked beyond the highlight reels to understand the grind behind the greatness, the structure that made those legendary moments happen. And he didn't stop there. Durant gave credit to Phil Jackson's triangle offense for unlocking a whole new side of Jordan's game. Early on, MJ was all about scoring for himself, but that system forced him to evolve. It made him a team-oriented weapon, someone who could dominate with or without the ball. Durant admired how Jordan learned to thrive inside a system, playing off his teammates instead of carrying every possession alone. When KD was asked to rate Jordan's skills, his answer showed just how deeply he'd studied him. He said Jordan's ball handling wasn't about flashy tricks, it was about efficiency. MJ did exactly what needed to be done. No wasted motion, no unnecessary flair. And on defense, he gave him the highest praise too, calling out his versatility and his ability to guard multiple positions at an elite level. To Durant, Jordan wasn't just great because of talent, he was great because of discipline, intelligence, and total control. Durant also admired how Jordan used his defense to change games, not just scoring, but stopping opponents cold. He said Jordan's ability to anticipate plays, jump passing lanes, and use his athleticism to create turnovers was pure genius. KD pointed out that while most people focus on MJ's scoring explosions, his defense was just as crucial to his greatness, that relentless two-way dominance that made him unstoppable. And when Durant was asked to pick his favorite Jordan moment, he didn't choose a buzzer beater or a finals performance. He picked something completely different. KD said his most meaningful memory was Jordan's time with the Washington Wizards. That era often gets mocked by basketball historians. But for KD, who grew up right in Prince George's County near DC, that period meant everything. It was his chance to see his hero up close. Not just a legend on TV, but a real person in his own hometown. Jordan playing for the Wizards made the myth feel human, reachable, and that inspired Durant in ways the championship years never could. His comments in that interview totally flipped the story that Shaq's been pushing, because instead of disrespecting Jordan's legacy, KD showed just how much he studied and respected it. Yet the tension between Shaq and Durant keeps looping back. Fans still can't agree on what fuels their feud. Is it ego, misunderstanding, or just generational pride? Shaq truly believes today's players don't give enough respect to the pioneers who built the league. But KD, by his own words, he spent his entire career learning from that same history. Maybe both things can be true. KD can joke about the past and still deeply honor it, and Shaq can admire Durant's talent while believing he sometimes crosses the line. Their relationship mirrors basketball itself, complicated, emotional, and forever up for debate. So what do you think? Was KD just playing around, or did he really go too far when talking about Michael Jordan's era? And should legends like Shaq keep stepping in to protect the culture, or just let the new generation speak for itself? Drop your thoughts down below. I want to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. We've got even more wild NBA stories coming your way. See you in the next one.